What's going on, internet? Cayce here again today with another drive-by. I want to talk today on April 27th, 2020. Sitting here, it's friggin' scorching because it's been cold for so long that a 60-65 degree day is super warm in the thermal and black pants. But anyways, I want to talk about WAKO and the Branch Davidians. Because there was recently I don't know how recent, but I know it's new. There was a docu-series on Netflix about it, which, you know, piqued my interest after I saw somebody make comments on it at Facebook. And I don't know a whole lot about it prior, or I should say didn't. I didn't know a whole lot about it prior to actually watching the docu-series because it was before my time and it wasn't really a scenario that came to mind. Like, you don't usually see people bring it up and talk about it unless you're probably in some type of religious cult study, or I guess anti-government circle would probably have mentioned it. But it really intrigued me, so I watched it through the eyes of this docu-series, which happened to be a really positive, but like positive Branch Davidian, negative FBI. So, for those of you that do know what WAKO is, it is the district that the Branch Davidians, a group of religious people with a leader, lived in a compound. Now, it has been deemed that he is a cult leader, and all these negative things, that he had like 20 wives, he slept with teenagers, beat his children. It was basically like a dictator, and that's what the public agenda isn't the word, that was what the public view was of this whole scenario. And I didn't know a whole lot about it, but I started to ask people after I watched it, and everybody's like, oh yeah, the WAKO, and oh, the Branch Davidian, Branch Davidian, I can't even, Davidian weirdos and all this stuff, and blah 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 blah, and all this slur. And when you watch the actual docu-series, it actually paints the Davidians, I can't even say that word now for some reason, it paints the Davidians as, like, I don't want to say the good guys, but not the wrongdoers, and that the ATF and the FBI had a lot of problems trying to, like, handle this situation. And it's based on the accounts of Thibodeau, I forget his first name, which was part of the group. And I think the second book is an FBI agent that was active duty during that entire siege, so that they could get all their information correct. Now, he has a book, and I think I'm considering reading it because I want to see his side of the story. But I go on YouTube, especially after talking to people about this and hearing like how he was a cult leader and all these negative things and like nasty stuff, and like literally nothing good to say, even though he's, you know, I mean, you deem anything a cult and then immediately it doesn't matter if it's a religious belief or not. But he did believe in the Bible, but also was okay with polygamy, and, you know, I think he focused a lot on the book of Revelations. But it's so interesting because I go and listen to some of the stuff on YouTube, so like other versions of a documentary, if you will. And some of them have like testimonies from people that were actually like children during the time, or people that were like teenagers. And I didn't really begin to like fact check to see the date or the names or nothing, but these are like CBS documentaries, or ABC documentaries, and like professionally done stuff, not just like podcast interviews. And they were talk about like negative scenarios, like he wouldn't let you eat fruit and vegetables together, and there was no running water and electricity, or, you know, he would bring people in, you know, and not tell them the full story until they were part of the community, and then he would take your wife, and like I'm hearing all these negative things about these people that were, you know, actually a part of it, and you can't not believe them. But then I start to see like people say that there was no electricity, and then in the docu-series and in a different documentary they talk about like turning their power on and off multiple times. Not to mention they had a phone. you know, and there's several other things that you probably pick up. And then, you know, I'm seeing this and I'm starting to wonder, like, God, here we go again. Another situation in the world where it's a who do you believe scenario. You know, it's like the old debate with Christopher Columbus. Was he a villain who killed children and destroyed towns and plundered wherever he landed his boat? Or was he the guy that discovered the new world and, you know, gave gifts to the Indians? And you know, it's like, I've seen topics like that through the years that can go either way, and it's starting to like turn into that. And then it got me thinking, but like, why would somebody that grew up as a Davidian, you know, these women and, you know, whoever, why would they speak so wrongly of it? But then also like Thibodeau, and mind you, I haven't read his book yet, so I'm sure maybe some information will make more sense to me and I'll have a better opinion. But like, why would he co-write and produce this? I guess he made the book, but he might have, like, you know, based off the book, you know, painted this to be like, yeah, like the ATF just showed up with allegations that, you know, they pinned it in the docuseries, not really a spoiler, but the whole process was from the FBI inside side that after the Ruby Ridge scenario where they accidentally killed the man's son and daughter, and then they had the public eye looking at them as tyrants and, you know, not agreeing with their antics very much, they, in the docuseries, set it up like it's going to be a stinger operation against WAKO under the premise that they think that he has, you know, like a bunch of grenade canisters and weapons. He bought like $200,000 worth of guns and ammunition and parts. And then I think the real world, if you will, sting was that one of the delivery, like the FedEx guy that delivered their packages, accidentally broke one open from dropping it, and it had empty grenade canisters in it. So he turned that information over to the you know, the state police or whatever have you. So, boy, I just lose my train of thought. Oh, so the FBI wants to turn WAKO into a scapegoat of their bad views. So they want to go into this place and liberate it and get all the women and children out and, you know, all these child abusers and take all their guns and, you know, make them seem like a tyrannical anti-government group. And maybe they were. I'm seeing information that says they were completely anti-government. They didn't believe in the overreach of government, so they lived on a compound in the middle of nowhere and did their own stuff. You know, they made their own money by their own ways, you know, did whatever they had to survive and forage, and they clearly took care of 130 people or something like that, so they weren't doing too bad. Now, I don't know if they were really harming anybody or doing anything wrong. That's not really the point, but I just thought it was so crazy. I want to do more information. I'm like infatuated with the whole concept of this and how they got sieged for 51 days, and then, you know, it just leads to conflict. So I don't have a whole lot more to, I guess, say on that. I guess if you haven't seen it, go check it out. If you have any interest, it's cool. I was talking to my my coworker today. He's a very, very, very strong Christian, like stand-up Christian. You know, like the guy that likes to not really enforce his beliefs on you, but is very encouraging and at least tries to open your eye to Christianity. You know, like saying, you know, this, that, and the other, and, you know, I will make you come to church, but, you know, like if you want to join, you know, I'd love to have you, and then you can talk about it openly without really forcing his opinions. He'll just say what's wrong or right. But that's the kind of guy he is, and I was talking to him about it, and he said, you know, they're a cult, and, you know, polygamy is not okay. It's forbade in the Ten Commandments, and, you know, if you look up all the stuff that David Koresh did, you know, you'd see that he was definitely not a true Christian. And some of the stuff that they were saying, like, yeah, like the dude sounds like he was awful. Like he was basically a dictator using the word of God to, like, make people believe that he was the Messiah. And it's probably very easy to find somebody like that. But, like, I don't know. One of the things I didn't like about it was, so the Branch Davidians, which they're separation of the Seven Deists or whatever, or something like that. And that is something that's been around for a long time. And even Andy acknowledged it as a group of Christians that have a different view on Christianity, slightly altered, kind of like the difference between Christianity and Catholicism. It's like they had different views on a couple things. And like he openly admitted, you know, it's just a Christian following. But the Branch Davidians are supposed to be a separation from that. Like they are the Seventh Deists, but it's like his regime. I don't know if that's a good word for it. And so it's like, okay, so why is everybody calling it a cult? You know, and one of the guys in one of the videos was talking about it. He said, well, you look at a cult, nobody ever refers to themselves as a cult. A cult is like typically thought of as like a bunch of Satanists that are like wearing robes and sacrificing goats and stuff. And he's like, cult is just a slander term for a religious group that isn't quite understand yet. So he said, what's the difference between a cult and a religion? He said 100 years, because it hasn't been around long enough. And I don't take that for fact, because that's mostly just memeing. But I was like, man, that's kind of what it feels like to me. Now, if you look at somebody like this Koresh guy, David Koresh, the one that ran the group, you know, if he's having sex with 14-year-olds and, you know, being kind of tyrannical and doing things that are kind of above government law, then, like, sure, I don't agree with having, you know, sexual relationships with teenagers. I don't think anybody morally does. You know, 18 seems like a fair age. You're a mature individual. You can decide who you want to marry and, you know, do your business with. But it's like, wow, like, did they really need to take it to the lengths that they did? I know, not the man. Wow, that guy's really got an interesting Trump getup. It intrigued me. Like, the guy was strung up to be like such a negative person, and as I do some more research, I'm not trying to defend him, but as I do some more research, I'm gonna end up having a better opinion. I just didn't like that I started to see fallacies on information, which, you know, of course, like anything. And also, like, my first view, not being alive during WAKO or knowing anything about it, I see this docu-series that supports that, like, hey, it was a revolving door community. He, like, let people in, and they could, you know, come and go as they please. They only mentioned him having 2 wives in the docu-series, but I'm finding information that he had up to, you know, somewhere in the teens, anywhere between 10 and 20. You know, I've heard a couple different numbers, so I'm just gonna theorize off the information I was an average, if you will, and then had like 20 some kids with all of them, and it's like, okay, well, like that. Hey everybody, sorry, I was in the middle of that drive-by that I was pretty much going to wrap up, and for whatever reason the GoPro decided to cut out. I believe it was probably due to the battery, but, you know, either way, I'm going to do some more homework and get into that book. If you guys were interested in this topic, you know, leave me a comment about what you think, maybe some good resources or information. That'd be pretty awesome. I hope you enjoyed my rant.